So we're going to use these Photopea directions. If you're at home, you can get it from the agenda. If you're in the class, we will be using it in print form. And so I'm going to have you find your best photo. I shared those that were taken in class. If you took them at home, you might have to convert it from HAIC to JPEG. And then you can find the link for Photopea on this handout. So go ahead and open that up. It also should probably be on your agenda. We've used this before. So let's go ahead and open up our image. So here's my photo. Remember that I took the photo, so you have to crop it in some sort of way. You'll probably notice that there's maybe a little extra background or extra clothing that we'll want to get rid of. Let's go ahead and go through the handout and see if there's anything that we need to do. We'll just kind of go through this step by step. So we opened our image, then situational. Maybe if your image is in color, you have to switch it to black and white. None of us should have that issue. Maybe we need to adjust the value of our picture. So there's different ways we can do that. We could go to image, we can go to brightness. Right? And I can pull this off to the side. So if for some reason the image is too dark or too light, I can make some minor adjustments. I would not want the image to get really washed out. I want to see a wide range of values. I wouldn't want it to get too dark either or too gray. Right, so I can reset anything, right? Another thing we used for our still life is we tried levels. So if you slide these around, if I slide the white, it will change the light values. If I slide the grays, it will try to give me more or less grays, depending on which direction I go. If I move the black, it will give me more black. But we're going to make sure that we have white, many shades of gray, and really dark darks. So more than likely, I took the photos fine. Okay, so let's go back to the adjustments. Okay, so the next thing you have to do is you have to try a bunch of different crops on your image. And so we are going to use some fixed ratios. So we're going to do fixed ratios, and we're going to be using either a square format, a rectangular format, or a panoramic. So I would like you to try some different ones, moving the rectangles around to get the good composition that we focused on our do's and don't presentation. So make sure to really look at that checklist step by step for yourself in order to make sure you have good composition before you print. So I'll go through these directions, but I want to make sure that you see it, that here's rectangle, either vertical or horizontal, right? That one's probably cropped too close to my neck. You can do square. You could do panoramic, right? So what I'm going to do is go back to this, and I'm going to go up to the side, to the left, I should say. I'm going to hit the cropping function, and we have to change this free to fixed ratio. Okay. So you see it automatically goes 1:1. And so if I want to try the square, that might happen to you too. I can click and hold, and I can move this around. So let's say I want to do it where it's just the top portion. I want to give myself some space to look. I can also drag the corner to really focus in on my face, right? So I can move this around, try different balances. I can hit enter. If I don't like it, I can always go undo, right? And I can try it again. Okay, if I like it, I can hit enter, right? And this one here, you can see how there's a little extra. Because that extra is not a part of my clothing or shoulder, I could probably get away with that and it would not be an issue. If it was a detail that I would need to continue, you don't want to have this transparent area. Okay, so let me undo that. Go back to the original. The other one that you can try besides a square, right? That's the 1-to-1 is the 6x6. You can try 5x7 or 7x5. So if I go up here, I can type in 5 and I can type in 7. And that's going to give me a vertical. So I think this is the one I actually used for my example. So I'm going to think about giving myself some space to be looking towards. I want to make sure that it's not like 50-50 background to face. Really want to emphasize the expression and not feel claustrophobic or decapitated. Right? So maybe something like that. Maybe I want to give myself less space at the top, so I can recrop the same thing and just use a little less. Right? But we have to make sure we're using these proportions because the paper size is going to be cut to this specifically. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and undo all of that and get back to the original. I can also try it as a horizontal. Now, this way, if you remember from the presentation, did not work out very well for me, but it might be better for yours. Maybe you have some shoulders that you want to show, right? So something like that maybe is not that bad, right? But you can do it either horizontal or vertical. The last one that you can try is a panoramic. So this is going to be long and skinny. So 4x8 or a 1-to-2 ratio. Here, right? And so this one is probably not going to work for most people, right? It's going to look kind of decapitated and have way too much background, but maybe it works better as a vertical. Okay, not that one. Let's try it again. So I can do that whole image. I can go back in, I can move this around. Maybe that's better. I still don't like it. Let's undo. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my 5x7 ratio. I'm going to get rid of what I don't need. Okay, so let's say I like this. I'm going to go back to the directions. Back to the directions. I'm going to go through, right? So the next thing I have to do is I have to make it so that I print it to high quality. So I'm going to go to image, image size, and I'm going to, this one is really high quality. Actually, maybe it might be too big for the printer. And I'm going to unclick resample. I'm just going to say, okay. Okay, so then we're going to export as a JPEG and we're going to rename it. So we don't want to save this in exactly the same spot where you got all the other photos, because you don't want to override your original photo in case you need it to go back to it and try something else. So make sure that you save it as something else and keep it in your Drawing One folder on Google. And then later we can also add this to our presentation. But really what we want to focus on is saving it as a file, because we're going to use a grid maker on this as well. And I'll show you that in just a little bit. So let's go ahead and go back. I apologize for getting off task here. So let's go ahead and export. I'm going to export as JPEG. And I know it's showing very little of the image. That's okay. It actually is just showing off how much good detail that camera can do. So I'm going to slide this all the way to 100, and I'm going to rename it here. And hit save. And then I am done with Photopea. I can save that file and put it into my Google account.